Hi everyone, this is the B2C2P2F Past Paper 2 run through. Remember, as I always say, you've got these equations at the front of your paper if you need them. First question is biology. So carrot plants are part of a food web. So here's the food web. So the arrows show what is eating what. So the carrot flies are eating the carrot plants, the mice are eating the carrot plants, and so on. It says how many trophic levels are on this food web. So a trophic level is essentially the number of these, the number of different things. So here there's 1, 2, 3, 4. You got 1, 2, 3, 4. You got 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Whichever way you go, there's always 4 trophic levels. So 4 is the answer there. Carrot flies cause damage to carrot plants. Farmers spray the plants. This kills most of the carrot flies. The population of the sparrow birds goes down. Explain why. So the first thing is if the carrot flies are being killed, then that is killing one of the things that sparrow birds eat. So the first thing is there's less food for the sparrows because it reduces the population of the carrot flies. So that'll get you a mark. And the second mark is a bit more tricky. So the other thing that will die are flycatcher birds because they don't have as many carrot flies to eat, which means sparrowhawk birds will have to eat more sparrow birds because there's less flycatcher birds to eat. So if you first mark, if you put something about the sparrow birds not having carrot flies to eat, so there's less food, that'll get the first mark. The second mark, if you put something to do with sparrowhawk birds eating more sparrow birds because there's not as many flycatcher birds, that'll get the second mark as well. The chemicals which killed the carrot flies caused sparrowhawks to lay eggs with weakened shells. This caused sparrowhawks to become endangered. Some carrot plants do not need to be sprayed with chemicals that are resistant to carrot flies. Biologists carried out trials on 4 resistant varieties. Look at the table results. What evidence in the table shows that a resistor fly might be the best variety to grow? So, just 1 mark, it's because it has the highest mean. So that's what you need to put there. It has the highest mean value. Show which variety has the biggest range of yield in the 3 fields. So to do this, you've got to work out the range for each one. Now remember, the range is the difference between the highest and the lowest number. So for this flyaway, the highest number is 5.2 and the lowest number is 5. So flyaway would be 0.2, so 5.2 take away 5. For maestro, you got 4.5 and 4.1 as your highest and lowest number, so it's 0.4. For resistor fly, it's 1, but the difference between 5.6 and 4.6, and for Citan it is 0.4 again. So the one that has the highest, biggest range of yield is resistor fly because its range is 1. But you need, for the second mark, you need to have all those numbers worked out. From the results of these trials, some biologists think that resistor fly is the best variety of carrot to grow. They think it will improve yields without harming the sparrowhawks further. It may be too soon for the biologists to come to this conclusion. Suggest why, sorry. So first marks are saying that the resistor fly has only been tested on 3 fields. So the idea that you need more evidence to work out how well resistor fly grows in the different conditions. And the second mark is saying that there's no evidence for the effects of reduced carrot fly on the sparrowhawk, so you cannot say whether it will do no harm to the sparrowhawk. So there's your 2 marks. This next question is a 6-mark question, so please mark that yourself and ask your teacher to check it if you're unsure whether you've marked it correctly. And then question B says, in 1978 the population of Thompson's gazelle was 916,000 worldwide. In 2005 there's only 40% of this number left. What was the worldwide population of Thompson's gazelle in 2005? So this requires you to be able to work out a percentage. So remember, 40% means 40 out of 100. Now if you just do that times 916,000, that'll give you 40% of 916. So it's 0.4 times 916,000, and that equals 366,400. So if you put that answer, that's your mark. Next question says, look at the graph. It shows the estimated worldwide population of cheetahs between 1880 and 2040. Explain what has happened to the estimated worldwide population of cheetahs. Use information from the graph and your answer to part B. So the first mark saying that cheetahs' population is reduced or it's in decline. And the second mark is saying it's in decline because there is not as much prey for it to eat because the gazelle is in decline as well. The graph was produced in 2010. What does the graph predict will happen to the cheetahs by 2040? So either extinction or they'll be almost extinct. If you were to continue this line, then by 2040 you're pretty much at 0. So they'll be extinct or almost extinct. This question is about classifying. Read the article about a species that was first discovered in 2009. So, 2009, the year of the green bomber. It says the green bomber is an annelid worm that lives at depths below 1,800 metres in the seas off California. At these depths, it is very dark. Otherwise known as the swimmer bombidivirus, the green bomber worm gets its name from the green oval structures near its head. When the worm sheds them, they briefly glow in the dark with a brilliant green light. The green oval structures are thought to be helpful in escaping from predators. So it says, this is a newly discovered species. What is meant by the term species? So actually, you didn't need all this to answer this question. So don't worry if there's words in here that you don't understand. Make sure that you get to the question eventually. So what is meant by the term species? So this is the idea that they're capable of interbreeding or their mating produces offspring. So that's your first mark. So mating produces offspring. Or you can say that they can mate or they can reproduce. But the second mark is saying that for them to be classed as a species, the offspring must be fertile. So the offspring must be able to have offspring as well for it to be classed as a species. Swimmer bombiviridis has been named using the binomial system. What do the two parts of the name identify? Put ticks in the boxes next to the two correct answers. So this is genus and species. And then this is more likely to survive at depths below 800 metres than other worms. This is because of its green oval structures. Suggest how the green oval structures make it more likely to survive. So this is the idea that in fact, there's 2 marks. There's 3 things you could say. You could say that it scares off predators. You could say to attract their food source or to act as bait, or you could say to attract mates. Some swimmer bombiviridis worms produce more green oval structures than others. Suggest how this might affect future generations of the worms. So it's the idea that they'll survive easier, and so they'll breed more in future generations. So if you said they'll survive easier, you'll get a mark there. So the next section is the chemistry section. So this question is about fertilisers. Farmers use fertilisers to increase crop yield. Look at the table, it lists 3 fertilisers. Ammonium phosphate contains 2 of the essential elements needed for plant growth. Which 2? So the 2 elements, well, the 3 elements needed for plant growth are nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. So ammonium phosphate contains nitrogen and phosphorus. Now, if you just wrote N and P, that would be fine, but writing the whole name is even better. Write down the total number of atoms in the formula NH43PO4. So the key here is you must recognise that 3 means there's 3 lots of all of that. So there is 1 N in there and 4 H's, but that's times by 3. There is also 1 times phosphorus and 4 oxygens. So there are actually 3 N's, 12 H's, 1 phosphorus and 4 oxygens. So overall, how many atoms are there? There's 3, 15, 16, 20 atoms. If you're asked how many elements there are, then that's just how many different symbols there are. So there's 4 elements, but 20 atoms. Chloe finds the pH of a solution of fertilising a pH meter. Write about another way she can work out the pH. So you could just say that she could add universal indicator and then compare the colour to a colour chart. So your first mark is saying add universal indicator. And the second mark is saying to compare the colour to a colour chart. It says Chloe makes some potassium nitrate by neutralising an alkali with a nitric acid. Look at the diagram, it shows the apparatus she uses. There it is. And it wants you to name apparatus A. So A is called a burette. And then write down the name of the alkali Chloe uses to make potassium nitrate. Now the alkali is always linked to the first word of the salt. And all you've got to do is take that first word and then put the word hydroxide afterwards. And that's always the same. So for any salt, so any fertiliser you might be asked to work out the alkali for, take the first word and then just put this word after it, hydroxide. Copper wire is used in electrical circuits. Solder is an alloy used to join electrical wires together. A hot soldering iron is used to melt the solder. Look at the table, it gives some information about solder. So it gives you melting point, density, relative strength, electrical conductivity and hardness. It says write about the properties that make solder suitable for joining electrical wires. Use information in the table. So the first thing is it must conduct electricity. So you can say it conducts electricity really well. So there's your first mark. And for it to be used as solder, for it to melt, you need to have a pretty low melting point, and it does, so it has a pretty low melting point. So you can say it conducts electricity well, and it has a low melting point for those 2 marks. This next question says, look at the photograph of an erupting volcano. Lava erupts from the volcano. Some of the lava is thrown up into the air and falls into the sea. This lava cools to form solid rock made of crystals. Suggest what size the crystals in the rock will be, and explain your answer. So remember, if the rock cools slowly, then you get really large crystals because they have time to form. But if it cools quickly, then you'll get really small crystals because they have to form really quickly because it's cooling quickly. So the fact it falls into the sea means it's going to cool quickly, which means you're going to have small crystals. So crystals are small. That's your first mark. And you have to, actually, it's only 1 mark, you have to explain it as well. So you have to say, because lava is cooled quickly. It can be dangerous to live near an active volcano. Some people choose to live near active volcanoes. Explain why. So this is because the soil is fertile, so crops grow much better. So you said something about the crops growing better or the soil is being fertile, then there's your mark there. Many theories have been put forward to explain the structure of the Earth's surface. Put a tick in the box next to the name of the theory that explains the structure of the Earth's surface. So plate tectonics is the idea of the surface of the Earth being made up of lots of plates that move around. This next question is the 6-mark question, so please can you mark this yourself and then ask your teacher just to check whether you've marked it correctly if you need them to. Another industrial process makes sulfur trioxide. Sulfur dioxide reacts with oxygen. Sulfur trioxide is made. Write the balanced symbol equation. So first thing doing symbol equations is write an arrow and then write what reacts together. So these 2 things it tells in the question react together. And then this it says is made. So to balance this you need 2 SO3s and 2 SO2s. Chloe investigates the rusting of iron. Look at the diagram. Which substance in Charlotte's investigation speeds up rusting the most? So here you've got rusty after 2 weeks, not rusty after 2 weeks, not rusty after 2 weeks, and rusty after 10 hours. So that is the quickest. So the fertiliser solution is the thing that speeds up the most. And then Charlotte thinks that oxygen and water react with iron when it rusts. How do you know she is right? Use the diagram to help you. So you can see what you've got to use are the things that aren't rusty. So here it's got dry air, there's no water in there, and it doesn't rust. And here you've got water with no oxygen in it, and that doesn't rust. So you can see that the 2 things that are needed are the water from this one and the oxygen from that one. So to explain that, to get those 2 marks, you need to say that there's no water in test tube 2, and there's no rust, and there's no oxygen in test tube 3, and there's no rust. So talking about both of those test tubes and saying that they're not rusty, but what they're missing in those test tubes. Charlotte repeats her investigation using aluminium nails instead of iron. The aluminium does not corrode. Explain why. So is the idea that aluminium is coated with a layer of aluminium oxide which doesn't come off. But if you just put that there's a layer of aluminium oxide, that will get you that 1 mark. Drink cans are often made of aluminium. People often put aluminium cans in recycling bins, right by the advantages of recycling aluminium. So 2 marks. So any 2 of these, you can say the aluminium can be used again. You could say it saves natural resources. You could say it reduces disposal issues. You could say it saves money, saves energy, or reduces litter. So any of those will get you a mark. Now onto the physics section. So first question says, stars and planets are part of the universe. The distance between the Earth's orbit and a planet's orbit can be measured. It says complete the table to show the relative positions of the other planets. So what you should have got here is Venus at the top, and then you've got Uranus, and you've got Saturn. Now the key thing here is that these aren't in order. If you see, you've got 18.2 there and 18.8.5 there. So what you want to do is put them in order first, and then work out which ones they are. Now if you want to remember what order the planets are in, remember my very easy method just speeds up naming and then planets. Obviously Pluto is no longer a planet, but you need that on the end. So my very easy method just speeds up naming planets. The distance from the Earth to the Sun is 1 astronomical unit. Use a table to find the distance from Mars to the Sun. So if the distance from Earth to Mars is 0.52, and the distance between Earth to the Sun is 1, then the distance from the Sun to Mars is going to be 1 plus 0.52. So that's going to be 1.52 there for that mark. The end of the life cycle of a star depends on its mass. Put the life cycle stages from the list into the correct order for a large star. So this is just something you've got to learn. So for a large star, you've got red supergiant first. That one goes into this top box. Then you've got a supernova, and then you've got a black hole. I would write those in rather than write arrows. It's much easier for the examiner to see and therefore give you the mark. Light cannot escape from a black hole. Explain why. So that's because a black hole has a really strong gravity. So even light can't escape the gravity that a black hole has. Tricia is a scientist investigating the radioactivity of a liquid. She knows beta is a type of nuclear radiation involved. Describe the safety measures she should take with a radioactive liquid and explain how these measures protect her from beta radiation. So there are lots of different answers you could have here. So 3 marks, so any 3 of these. So you can say that she could wear protective clothing, because that's 1 mark, to stop beta passing through, or because beta can cause cancer, for the 2nd mark. You could say that she could use tongs or keep her distance. You could say short exposure time, so not using it for very long. You could say using a suitable using aluminium shield. You could say storing it in suitable storage. So any of those will get you a mark. The student has some ideas about the effects of radiation on living cells. She writes down some of her ideas. So first idea is, can radiation cause cancer? Yes. She thinks that radiation is very dangerous. She has known about this for a long time. Says, can radiation be used to treat cancer? She says, I know that gamma radiation is used in hospitals, so it must be true. Says, explain why the student cannot use only these ideas to make informed decisions about the effect of radiation on living cells. So 2 marks. First marks are saying that these are just her opinions. Or we could say that the idea that there's no scientific evidence or there's no data. So those 2 things you need to say for those 2 marks. So it's just based on her opinions and there's no data. Those are your 2 marks. Zach uses many appliances in his home. Look at the information about the appliances used the most. So you've got a few there. It says all the appliances use the 230 volt mains voltage. The currents shown are average values. The heater is only used at night. Calculate the power rating for the heater in kilowatts. So power equals current times voltage. So that's going to equal 230 for the voltage times, where's the heater, 9 for the amps. So that equals 2070, but that's in watts. So in kilowatts, you need 2.07. You need to divide that by 1,000. So it's 2.07 kilowatts. So if you did this, that gets you a mark, and if you were able to convert it into kilowatts, that gets you the second mark. Calculate the total energy supplied to the heater in 1 night in kilowatt hours. So it's used for 12 hours, and the number of kilowatts it gives out per hour is 2.07. So that equals 24.84. So if you've got the answer, that gets you both marks. And then Zach pays 12p per kilowatt hour for electricity usage during the day. He pays 6p per kilowatt hour for electricity usage during the night. He is considering switching to the same cost for day and night of 10p. This would not save him money. Suggest reasons why. So you have to have this one for 1 mark. So the heater uses the most energy. Or you could say the electricity is only used at night, or it uses the most energy or electricity at night. So that gets to the first mark. And then the second mark can be any one of these. So you could say, so therefore it's cheaper to pay just 6p. Or you could say the 10p cost is more expensive. Or you could say the increase in price of 4p is too much. So any of those will get you that second mark. So this next question is the 6-mark question. So please can you mark this yourself and ask your teacher to mark it. Mark this yourself and ask your teacher to check it, just to check whether you've marked it correctly if you're unsure. And this last question, look at the diagram of different photocells. They were all exposed to the same brightness of light. Will they all produce the same current? So this is a no, but that doesn't get you a mark. You have to explain it. The explanation gets you the mark. So this is just the idea that it has a different surface area. They won't give the same current because they have different surface areas. Sketch a graph to show what happens to current as the size of the photocell changes. So first thing, for 2 marks, you've got to label the axes. So you've got area on the bottom and current along the side, and then just a line that goes up like that. So just showing that as the area increases, the current also increases. So you have a straight line or a curved line. And that's the end of the paper. So please can you add up your marks, top them up, put them on your poster, and then try the next one, please.